field in mathematics, algebraic topology, and geometry. And that paper up there had its roots in this. So here's this thing. It has 8 vertices and 12 edges and 6 faces. And if you look at the difference, vertices minus edges plus faces, you get 2. Okay, well, 2, that's a good number. Oh, here's a different way of doing it. These are triangles covering. Oh, this has 12 vertices and 30 edges and 20 faces, 20 tiles, and vertices minus edges plus faces still equals 2. And in fact, you could do this any which way. Cover this thing with all kinds of polygons and triangles and mix them up. And you take vertices minus edges plus faces, you'll get 2. Now here's a different shape. This is a torus, or the surface of a donut. 16 vertices covered by these rectangles, 32 edges, 16 faces. Hey, this comes out 0, vertices minus edges. It'll always come out 0. Every time you cover a torus with squares or triangles or anything like that, you're going to get 0 when you take that thing. So this is called the Euler characteristic, and it's what's called a topological invariant. It's pretty amazing. No matter how you do it, you're always going to get the same answer. So that was the first sort of thrust from the mid-1700s into a subject which is now called algebraic topology.
And your own work took an idea like this and moved it into higher dimensional theory. You looked at higher dimensional objects and found new invariances?
Yes. Well, there were already higher dimensional invariants, Pontryagin classes. Actually, there were Chern classes. There were a bunch of these types of invariants. But I was struggling to work on one of them and model it sort of combinatorially instead of the way it was typically done, and that led to this work, and we uncovered some new things. But if it wasn't for Mr. Euler, who wrote almost 70 volumes of mathematics, had 13 children whom he apparently would dandle on his knee while he was writing it. So if it wasn't for Mr. Euler, well, there wouldn't perhaps be these invariants.
Okay, so that's at least given us a flavor of that amazing mind in there. Let's talk about Renaissance, because you took that amazing mind, and having been a co-cracker at the NSA, you started to become a co-cracker in the financial industry. I think you probably didn't buy efficient market theory, and somehow you found a way of creating these astonishing returns over 2 decades. I think the way it's been explained to me, what's remarkable about what you did was that it wasn't just the size of the returns, it was that you took them with surprisingly low volatility and risk compared with other hedge funds. So how on earth did you do this, Jim?
Well, I did it by assembling a wonderful group of people. When I started doing trading, I got a little tired of mathematics. I was in my late 30s, I had a little money, I started trading, and it went very well. I made quite a lot of money with pure luck. I mean, I think it was pure luck. It certainly wasn't mathematical modeling. But in looking at the data, after a while, I realized, hey, looks like there's some structure here. And I hired a few mathematicians, and we started trying to make some models. Just the kind of thing we did back at IDA. You design an algorithm, you test it out on a computer, does it work, doesn't it work, and so on.
So can we take a look at this? Because, I mean, here's a typical graph of some commodity or whatever. I mean, I look at that, and I say, that's just a random up and down walk, maybe a slight upward trend over that whole period of time. How on earth could you look at that, and see something that wasn't just random?
It turns out, in the old days, and this is kind of a graph from the old days, commodities or currencies had a tendency to trend. Not necessarily the very light trend you see here, but trending in periods. And if you decided, okay, I'm going to predict today by the average move in the past 20 days, there's 20 days, maybe that would be a good prediction and I'd make some money. And in fact, years ago, such a system would work. Not beautifully, but it would work. So you'd make money, you'd lose money, you'd make money, but this is a year's worth of days, and you'd make a little money during that period. But it's a very vestigial system.
So you would test a bunch of different sort of lengths of trends in time and see whether, for example, a 10-day trend or a 15-day trend was predictive of what happened next?
Sure. You would try all those things and see what worked best. But the trend following would have been great in the 60s, and it was sort of okay in the 70s. By the 80s, it wasn't such a...
It didn't, because everyone could see that.
People
so what happened? So how did you stay ahead of the pack?
Well, we stayed ahead of the pack by finding other approaches, and shorter-term approaches to some extent. But the real thing was to gather a tremendous amount of data, and we had to get it by hand in the early days. We went down to the Federal Reserve and copied interest rate histories and stuff like that, because it didn't exist on computers. We got a lot of data, and very smart people, and that was the key. I didn't really know how to hire people to do fundamental trading. I had hired a few, some made money, some didn't make money. I couldn't make a business out of that, but I didn't know how to hire scientists, because I have some taste in that department. And so that's what we did. And gradually, the models got better and better and better and better.
I mean, I think you're credited with doing something remarkable at Renaissance, which is building this culture, or this group of people who weren't just hired guns who could be lured away by money. Their motivation was doing exciting mathematics and science.
Well, I hope that might be true, but some of it was money.
They made a lot of money.
I can't say that no one came because of the money. I think a lot of them came because of the money, but they also came because it would be fun.
What role did machine learning play in all this?
Well, in a certain sense, what we did was machine learning. You look at a lot of data and you try to simulate different predictive schemes until you get better and better at it. It doesn't necessarily feed back on itself the way we did things, but it worked.
So these different predictive schemes can be really quite wild, quite unexpected. I mean, you look at everything, right? You look at weather, length of dresses, political opinion.
Length of dresses we didn't try, but
what sort of things?
Well, everything. I mean, everything is grist for the mill, except hem lengths, I have to say. Weather, annual reports, monthly, quarterly reports, the historic data itself, volumes, you name it, whatever there is. We take in terabytes of data a day and store it away and massage it and get it ready for analysis. And, You're looking for anomalies. You're looking for, like you said, the efficient market hypothesis.
But only one anomaly might be just a random thing. So is the secret here to just look at multiple strange anomalies and see when they align?
Well, any one anomaly might be a random thing. However, if you have enough data, you can tell that it's not. So you can see an anomaly that's persisted for a sufficiently long time, so the probability of it being random is not high. But these things fade after a while. Anomalies can get washed out, so you have to keep on top of the business.
A lot of people look at the hedge fund industry now,